Natalie Foster stared at the stack of bills on the kitchen table, her stomach knotting tighter with each envelope she opened. Her mother's multiple sclerosis treatment costs had doubled this month, and her part-time job at the diner barely covered. Groceries for her twin siblings, Peter and Penny. "We'll figure something out," she whispered to herself, though the words rang hollow in the empty kitchen. At 17, she'd become the de facto head of household since her father's disappearance 3 years ago. The knock at the door came precisely at 7. Natalie smoothed her second-hand dress and opened it to find a tall, imposing figure in an impeccable suit. "Miss Foster, I'm James Crawford. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." His voice was deep and measured, his expression unreadable behind stylish glasses. At 42, James had built Crawford Industries into a tech empire, but remained something of a mystery to the public. The rumors of his search for a surrogate had reached Natalie through her boss at the diner, where James's assistant occasionally ordered takeout. "Please, come in," Natalie said, gesturing to their modest living room. "Can I offer you some tea?" "No, thank you. Prefer to discuss business directly." He sat on the edge of the sofa, briefcase balanced on his knees. "I understand your family is experiencing financial difficulties." Heat rushed to Natalie's cheeks. "We're managing. The medical bills for your mother's MS treatment suggest otherwise." When Natalie's eyes widened, he added, "I believe in thorough research before any potential arrangement." "What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Crawford?" James opened his briefcase, removing a folder. "I require a surrogate. My wife, Rachel, passed away 5 years ago from ovarian cancer. Before her treatment, we preserved embryos. I've decided it's time to have the child we always wanted." "And you're approaching a 17-year-old girl?" Natalie's voice sharpened. "You're nearly 18, in good health, and in need of financial assistance? I'm offering $500,000 plus all medical expenses." He slid the folder toward her. "This would cover your mother's treatment for years, your siblings' education, and your own college tuition." Natalie's hands trembled as she opened the folder. "Why me?" "You have a reputation for responsibility beyond your years. The pregnancy would require you to live at my estate under medical supervision. After delivery, you would have no parental rights or obligations." His tone remained clinical, detached. "This is strictly business, Miss Foster. No emotional entanglements." Natalie thought of her mother's deteriorating condition, of the twins who deserved more than second-hand clothes and discount groceries. "How soon would you need an answer?" she asked quietly. "Take 24 hours. A lawyer can meet with you." "Tomorrow evening." James stood, straightening his already perfect suit. "I should mention that I value privacy. A non-disclosure agreement would be part of our arrangement." As he reached the door, Natalie found her voice. "Mr. Crawford. Have any other family?" Something flickered across his face, a momentary softening. "No, Miss Foster. Not anymore." After he left, Natalie sat with the contract until dawn, weighing impossible choices against uncertain futures. Never suspecting that the strictly business arrangement would eventually rewrite both their hearts. The Crawford estate sprawled across 10 manicured acres, its limestone facade gleaming in the morning light as Natalie's worn suitcase bumped across the cobblestone driveway. 2 weeks had passed since she'd signed the contract. It's her 18th birthday, marking the legal transition into this new life. "This wing will be yours," James explained, leading her through corridors lined with artwork that probably cost more than her family's entire house. "The medical suite is downstairs, where Dr. Harrison will conduct weekly checkups." Natalie nodded, trying to appear composed while mentally calculating how many months of her mother's treatment each painting could fund. "It's very spacious." "The embryo transfer is scheduled for tomorrow morning," James continued, his tone businesslike. "My assistant Olivia has arranged everything. Your family has been told you're participating in a live-in academic program with a substantial scholarship." Her room, a suite larger than her family's entire first floor, featured a canopy bed, sitting area, and private bathroom with a tub big enough to swim in. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked gardens where fountains sparkled in the sunlight. "Dinner. Is it 7? The chef can accommodate any dietary preferences." James checked his watch. "I have calls until 9. If you need anything, use the house phone to reach Olivia." As he turned to leave, Natalie blurted, "Mr. Crawford, thank you. For my mother's new treatment program, the doctors say it's already helping." Something shifted in his expression, a momentary crack in his armor. "It was part of our arrangement, Miss Foster." That night, unable to sleep in the too-soft bed, Natalie wandered downstairs for tea. The kitchen lights were already on. James sat at the island counter, tie loosened, glasses off, rubbing his temples as he studied a tablet. "I'm sorry," Natalie stammered. "I didn't mean to disturb you. It's your home too, for now." He glanced up, and without his glasses, his eyes appeared. Younger, the creases around them softened. "There's chamomile in the cabinet by the sink." Natalie prepared her tea in silence, acutely aware of his presence. Without his perfectly tailored jacket, James seemed less imposing, more human. "May I ask you something?" she ventured, cradling her mug. When he nodded, she continued, "Why not use a professional surrogate agency?" James set down his tablet. "Agencies involve more people, more variables I can't control." He paused. "Control is important to me, because of your wife." His expression tightened. "You've been researching me? Just trying to understand who I'm." Natalie gestured vaguely at her still flat stomach. Working with. To her surprise, James's mouth quirked upward. "A fair assessment. Yes, Rachel's illness taught me that some things cannot be controlled, no matter how much money or power you possess. This our arrangement I can manage carefully." The following weeks established a rhythm. Mornings brought Dr. Harrison's visits. Afternoons found Natalie studying for her GED in the library, and evenings typically passed with James working late. But gradually, small changes appeared. A bookshelf of classics materialized in her room after she mentioned loving literature. The kitchen was stocked with the ginger tea she preferred for morning sickness. 6 weeks after the successful embryo transfer, Natalie entered the media room to find James watching old films. "Casablanca," she noted, recognizing the scene. "Mom's favorite. Mine too," he admitted, gesturing to the empty space beside him. "Would you care to join me?" That night marked a shift. As Humphrey Bogart delivered his famous lines, Natalie noticed James mouthing the words along with him. When she smiled at this, he actually looked embarrassed. "I've seen it perhaps 40 times, he confessed. "I wouldn't have guessed you were." "Sentimental, Mr. Crawford?" James, he corrected, surprising them both. "If you're carrying my child, perhaps formalities are unnecessary." Later that week, during dinner, James noticed Natalie pushing food around her plate. "With the meal? No, it's perfect. I just... double quotes." She hesitated. "I miss cooking. At home, I made dinner every night." The next evening, Natalie entered the kitchen to find ingredients laid out and James awkwardly holding a cookbook. "Olivia mentioned you enjoy Italian food. I thought, perhaps you might teach me something simple." She guided his inexperienced hands through making pasta from scratch. Natalie glimpsed another side of the stern businessman, one who laughed at his own mistakes and seemed genuinely interested. In her culinary knowledge, when their fingers brushed over the rolling pin, something electric passed between them. James withdrew his hand quickly, retreating behind his professional facade. "I should check my emails," he said abruptly, leaving Natalie alone with flour-dusted counters and questions she wasn't ready to ask herself. That night, touching the slight curve now visible beneath her nightgown, Natalie realized with a jolt that while she had signed up to carry James Crawford's child, she hadn't planned on caring about the man himself. Yet somewhere between contract clauses and kitchen conversations, something unwritten was taking shape, something neither of them had anticipated. Asterisk. "They'll understand eventually," Natalie said, though uncertainty tinged her voice. "Once they see that this was my choice, that it's helping them. Is that all it is to you? A practical arrangement?" James asked, his knuckles whitening on the steering wheel. Before she could answer, his phone rang. Bradford Wilson, his company's board chairman. James reluctantly answered on the car's speaker system. "Crawford, there are rumors circulating about your house guest." Bradford's voice filled the car. "The Miller acquisition is hanging by a thread, and our investors are asking questions about your judgment." "My personal life isn't board business," James replied coldly. It is when you've got a pregnant teenager living in your home. Do you have any idea how this looks? The press is starting to circle. Natalie stared out the window, cheeks burning as Bradford continued. We've worked too hard building Crawford Industries' reputation for you to throw it away on some midlife crisis. You wanted a child? There were more appropriate ways. That's enough, James interrupted. I'll call you back. He ended the call abruptly, jaw clenched. Your business is suffering because of me, Natalie stated quietly. My business is fine. Bradford overreacts to everything. The next morning's newspaper proved Bradford right. A grainy photo of Natalie and James entering the hospital appeared on page 6 with the headline, Tech Billionaire's Teen Companion Expecting. The article contained just enough innuendo to suggest impropriety without making direct accusations. James's legal team moved quickly to suppress further coverage, but the damage was spreading through social media. That evening, Natalie received a text from Peter. Everyone at school saw the article. Mom won't stop crying. What were you thinking? The fallout continued when Dr. Harrison arrived for Natalie's checkup, her manner noticeably cooler. The stress of this situation isn't ideal for the baby, she remarked. Perhaps you should consider whether this environment remains appropriate. This is her home, James stated firmly. Temporarily, Dr. Harrison corrected, according to the contract. After she left, Natalie found James in his office, staring at the nursery plans. Maybe I should stay somewhere else until the birth, she suggested reluctantly. Is that what you want? He asked, not meeting her eyes. No, but your reputation, your business. I don't care about any of that, he interrupted, finally looking. At her not compared to, he stopped himself. Compared to what, James? Instead of answering, he crossed the room and pulled her into a gentle embrace, his hand cradling her head against his chest. They stood like that, heartbeats synchronizing, the unspoken growing stronger between them. The moment was interrupted by Olivia at the door. Mr. Crawford, your ex-sister-in-law is here. Rachel's sister, Victoria. She's quite insistent on speaking with you. Victoria Harlow's elegance matched her righteous indignation. How dare you use Rachel's embryos with this? She demanded, gesturing dismissively toward Natalie. My sister would be horrified. Victoria, you haven't spoken to me in 5 years, James replied evenly. You don't get to invoke Rachel's memory now. The family has rights. No, legally you don't. Rachel and I were clear about our wishes. Victoria turned to Natalie. Do you know he's just replacing Rachel with the closest thing to a child he can control? That's all this is. All you are to him. The words struck deeper than Natalie wanted to admit. That night, alone in her room, doubt crept in. What were they doing? What happened after the baby was born? The contract stated clearly that she would leave, returning to her family with the financial compensation, but no rights to the child growing inside. Her a child she'd begun thinking of as theirs rather than just his. Meanwhile, James faced his own council of critics board members threatening to resign, business partners reconsidering deals, and Rachel's family demanding explanations. Everyone seemed to have an opinion about an arrangement they couldn't possibly understand. In the darkness of his study, James realized that for all his careful planning and legal protections, he'd never prepared for the most unpredictable variable of all, falling in love with the mother of his child. The August heat pressed against the windows as Natalie packed her clothes into the same worn suitcase she'd arrived with 9 months earlier. Her hands trembled slightly as she folded a sundress James had bought her during their weekend trip to the coast before Victoria's visit, before the press speculation, before the growing tension of impending separation. 3 weeks until her due date. The baby, a girl, they'd learned, had kicked vigorously against her ribs as if protesting. The preparations. Are you sure about this? Olivia asked from the doorway, her usual professional demeanor softened by months of friendship. The contract was clear, Natalie replied, not meeting her eyes. After delivery, I leave with the compensation, and James raises his daughter. The words felt hollow, mechanical, nothing like the complex emotions tangling in her chest. Downstairs, James sat in his office reviewing the nursery's completion with the interior designer, his expression revealing nothing of the turmoil beneath. The celestial theme from Rachel's original plans had been faithfully executed, with one addition: a small painting of the rose garden, where he and Natalie had first begun to truly know each other. Mr. Crawford, his assistant, interrupted. Lawyer is on line 1, about the final payment structure. James nodded, lifting the receiver. Daniel, I've been reconsidering some aspects of our arrangement. That evening, thunder rumbled in the distance as James and Natalie shared what would be one of their final dinners together. The conversation remained painfully superficial discussions of the baby's medical schedule, the trust fund James had established, the apartment he'd secured for Natalie near her family's home. Your mother's treatment is guaranteed for 10 years, he assured her, and the twins' college funds are irrevocable. Natalie nodded, pushing food around her plate. You've been more than generous? It was our agreement. Is that all it was? She finally asked, meeting his gaze directly. An agreement? Before he could answer, a sharp contraction seized her, stealing her breath. James was instantly beside her, concern replacing his careful neutrality. It's too early, she gasped. Hours later in the hospital, Dr. Harrison confirmed Natalie was in premature labor. The baby's heartbeat is strong, but we need to monitor you both carefully. Left alone in the delivery room during a brief respite between contractions, Natalie and James finally confronted what had been building between them for months. I'm scared, she admitted, clutching his hand. Of the delivery? Of tomorrow? Leaving, her voice broke. Of never seeing you or her again. James brought her hand to his lips. I've amended the contract. What? If you want, there's a place for you with us. Not as a surrogate, not as an employee. As struggled to articulate feelings he'd kept contained for too long. As what, James? As her mother? As my partner? If that's what you want? Another contraction interrupted her response, stronger than before. The next hours blurred into a symphony of pain, encouragement, and finally at 3:17 a.m., the miraculous cry of their daughter entering the world. She's perfect, Dr. Harrison announced, placing the swaddled infant in Natalie's arms. 5 pounds, 8 ounces. James stared in wonder at the tiny face that somehow combined elements of Rachel, self, and in her determined expression, something of Natalie's spirit. What will you name her? The doctor asked. Natalie looked questioningly at James. They hadn't discussed names, maintaining that final boundary. Hope, he said softly. If that seems right to you. Natalie smiled through tears. Hope Crawford. It's perfect. The following days brought a parade of visitors: Natalie's cautiously accepting family, James's surprisingly supportive board chairman, even Victoria, whose initial coldness melted somewhat upon seeing her niece. Rachel would want her to have a mother, Victoria conceded reluctantly, watching Natalie gently rock the baby. She'd want James to be happy again. When they finally brought Hope home to the estate, Natalie paused on the threshold. I'd ever officially answered your question. James turned, cradling their sleeping daughter. Which one? About staying. About us being ... partners. I meant everything I said, he assured her. But I understand if you need time, or if you want to establish your independence first. The compensation is still yours regardless. Natalie shook her head. I don't want to be paid to love you both. That was never part of our arrangement. Then, what do you want? A new contract? She stepped closer, one hand touching Hope's soft hair, the other finding James's face. One that acknowledges what's already true, that somewhere between legal clauses and medical appointments, you became a family. I believe that requires different paperwork entirely, James replied, his smile transforming his face. Perhaps something. With the words love and forever rather than compensation and termination date. 6 months later, they stood in the rose garden, where their relationship had first begun to change. Hope watched from Elizabeth Foster's arms. The grandmother's health dramatically improved under new treatments. Natalie wore a simple white dress, flowers in her hair, as she and James exchanged vows that bore no resemblance to their original. Contract promises not of business arrangements but of partnership, growth, and unconditional love. When I hired a surrogate, James said softly, for her ears alone, I never imagined I was actually finding my heart again, and when I signed that contract, Natalie replied, I thought I was just solving a financial problem. Instead, I found where I belonged. Their kiss sealed a different kind of agreement, witnessed by family who had overcome their initial objections, friends who had supported them through controversy, and the daughter who had brought them together. Later that evening, as they danced beneath strings of lights in the garden, Natalie caught sight of the contract framed on James's office wall, not their surrogacy agreement, but the first drawing Hope had made with Natalie's help. 3 stick figures, hand in hand, beneath a bright sun. Some would never understand how love had bloomed from such unusual beginnings. Some would question their age difference, their backgrounds, the circumstances of their meeting, but Natalie and James had learned that the most meaningful contracts weren't written on paper, but inscribed on the heart hand. Theirs had been rewritten in the most unexpected and beautiful way. As Hope grew from infant to toddler to young girl, she would come to understand that her origin story wasn't typical, but it was theirs, a testament to how life's most carefully planned arrangements can transform into something far more precious when we open ourselves to possibilities beyond the original terms. Asterisk.